Hey, Bill Friel here, United States Postal Service letter carrier retired, with a welcome to a retirement project, a video chapbook, if you will, with the title, A Mailman Takes a Flyer on an Ode. So, let me just say, real quick, if you are going to spend the next 20 minutes with me, I want you to know a few things up front. One is that every bit of this plain spoken text began in some form while I delivered mail house to house on my route in the historic Prospect Hill neighborhood of Bloomington, Indiana. And let me also tell you that I'm not going to involve you with any grievance work here. And I am also hereby declaring this to be a personal wisdom-free zone, because I got none of that. But what I do have are small moments from my daily routine as a letter carrier that stuck with me and are with me today still in memory with some resonance of some form or another, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I hope to present all this with some originality in voice and content. You will be the decider on that. So, having said that, let's begin. First up, this piece is out of one of those random moments that tickled me to death when it happened. It tickles me to death still today, and it's titled Wild Boys. We could feel them before we saw them. Feel them like a sudden shift of wind, this one hot, humid, electric, predicting violence. We were still at the old Main, downtown, 4th and Washington, mail processing and 10 city walkouts, and the disturbance had entered the opposite corner of the building, through bulk mail, high boyish voices, interrupted by low older ones. Now, we city carriers were used to morning tours, the school kids mostly, the League of Women Voters once, so we waited and cased, filling our mail slots, tending to our responsibilities and disciplines. And then they came around the corner, about 20 from the neighboring boys' club, a rolling mosh pit of adolescents, with a few older boys, counselors, already harried, grabbing boys by the arms, spinning the small bodies, arms and bodies being torn back, counselor faces low into small faces defiant, determined to make mayhem. Well, I paused, and with mail in hand, looked over my glasses at a 10-year-old who glared back and with eyes burning, walked up to my case and kicked a trail of letters, scattering the mail all across the black tiles. Crossing his arms, he looked at me so cocky, I had to imagine he knew himself as a vandal with a capital V, centuries ago on a dusty street in Rome, wagging a jeweled dagger in his bloody fingers. Well, I paused again, and I thought, okay, well, I see you, little man, and I will wait. No, not for an apology, but for you, with respect. For the day you're a grown man, making the weak and the worried to scatter like those letters did when you kicked them. And with those eyes wet with fire, let me and God know we'd be next, along with anyone who ever dared get in your way. That was one bad little fella right there. He showed me who was boss. Yes, he did. In no uncertain terms. Okay. Let's move to the titular piece. A mailman takes a flyer on an ode. Oh, cuckoo. Well, pigeon, really. That crazy Lonnie spray-painted Dayglow pink, bobbing on the boards of the rotting porch at 110 West Smith. What the hell deal is this? Cuckoo, you are free. From the twofold shout and the slavery of the golden moment, yet doomed to peck amongst the clutter in a coat of feathered lies, like every single one of us. Ouch. Poor bird. Tough town. Okay, we're moving along to the next piece. With apologies to my boy, W. Stevens. And this one is titled Anecdote of the Bucket of Clods. One time delivering mail, I came across a bucket of clods, seemingly placed with purpose on a sketchy porch on weedy West 6th Street. Now the clods in that bucket looked to be of Indiana clay, formed true as baking potatoes and rose to the rim. Well, I had to wonder, a reprise of Mr. Potato Head? Eyes, ears, nose, lips, little hats? Or maybe some upcoming social influencing? You know, the clods love this product. They think you're going to love it too. Or going another way, maybe a thing symbolic, highly personal and sad, set there for all the world to see the sum of someone's failed dreams. Well, I dropped the mail in the box, turned and stepped away. And I remember I thought about that bucket off and on that whole day, and even later that night driving home, searching the sky for an absent new moon. I hoped those clods in that bucket someday would be something and not nothing. You know, segueing, I've always been fascinated by the phenomenon of how musicians, and it would seem to be a lot of jazz musicians, see colors when they play music. It's called synesthesia. I am not a musician, but you know, like almost everybody, I enter into situations and have impressions and associations. And anyway, playing around with all that, I came up with this piece, and it's titled Reverse Synesthesia. 40-some degrees, a wind, slanted rain, wet mail on my cold fingers. I'm standing with satchel heavy at 3rd and Rogers, waiting for the walk sign, the stoplight streaking red, then green on the shiny asphalt. I actually feel lucky here in this minute, watching the red like a dancer reach for length, and then the green reaching. And lucky still as cars pass by in the downhill slosh, well, I hear brushstrokes on a soft snare drum. Pronounced fading, then soon that long round tone from Miles' horn, all blues or blue and green, doesn't matter, either one. To me that sound is time, like on a path where the bushes thicken shadow and sorrow, where memories stir in tall trees, where old wounds scar over. Well, eventually, as the walk sign does come on, well, I step off, as usual, with purpose, but this time with something more, with music, rhythm, feel, this much, and not the least, in a cooled out and cloudy man. This next piece, I'm going to just launch into, and it's titled Kroger TV. Well, like every day, I dropped the mail off at the office window, a squared off space suggesting the bridge of a ship that looked out over the store like it was an ocean. And there being no one in the wheelhouse that day, well, I looked around, then up, and to my surprise, saw me in living color on the closed circuit Kroger TV, and not the usual aisle fading into a grainy black and white. No, this was new. This was improving. And this was improving with a face that was sure to be me, so I waved. I stuck my tongue out. I put my hands up to my ears and wiggled my fingers so they looked like plants growing out of my head and waving in the wind. But then I paused, surprised at how close it seemed I could be in that moment on that TV to a new life altogether, like with celebrity. An appearance on a late night TV talk show with stupid postman tricks. Or maybe I'm appearing as an author with a new book. Or maybe I'm there as a mailman having fame, having saved a child. Next. Another one of those random events I'm still thinking about. It's titled Big V. I can't speak to the why it happened, but I can speak to the what. The day Big V, with that voice so loud, so resonant, it could crack limestone, decided to tell us, well, my dad his whole life never once told me he loved me. Why, well, I tell my boys I love them every day. Immediately, the workroom music of chatting, thudding, and clanging came to a halt as 30 carriers and clerks paused and went into review of lives hurt, loves repaired, maybe, many not. It was as if in a single moment each one of us set our mail down and with free hands sorted through hard choices and drunken songs. Well, slowly, as we all got back to work, the calliope of every day returned, and we returned to ourselves. No, not transformed, but mirrored, a little clearer in the who we weren't and the who we'd never be. Okay, and next is a long piece, a piece of prose, if you will, with a rather weighted title of A Christmas Story Told with Extravagant Intent. Years ago, when I delivered mail on West Dixie Street, there was a one-story limestone house on one of the corners. Pretty nice house compared to the fading bungalows in that neighborhood, and one year a young couple, ambitious looking, moved in. They looked to be in their early 30s. Woman, tall and pretty. Husband, tall and handsome. They seemed to be meant for each other. But I'll tell you what, they were not meant for me. They were the kind who would go inside the house from the yard when I approached as if they hadn't seen me. Or if they had seen me, wouldn't even look my way as I left them their mail. Pretty rude for real, but to me not a problem. Some people are just like that. Part of the job. Now daily, as per our delivery manual, I would cut through their yard to make my drop unless requested otherwise. Well, one day I saw a note attached to the mailbox with the heading, Mail Person. Well, I grabbed the note, opened it, and read, "Do not cut across my yard. I am trying to establish a lawn and soil able to grow a flower garden next spring. Your path is compacting my soil and making that goal impossible. Use a sidewalk. That's what it's there for." Well, all right. Sidewalk it is. Makes no difference to me. The longer it takes, the more money I make. I stashed the note in my jacket pocket. Well, of course, I took the note back to the office to show my fellow carriers. The typical reactions were, "The hell? What an asshole. Some people you just can't help." My favorite one was, "When I get a fool like that on my route, I drop a pile of those white styrofoam packing peanuts in their yard." Man, they hate that. Well, over time, I did use the sidewalk. Spring came, then summer, her yard and garden weren't shit. Whatever. And then some more time passed, and one day I noticed the young woman was pregnant. I thought, as sour as she is, she'll likely push out an old gargoyle. Let her post that in her yard to discourage her mailman. But I'm going to shift the story here and tell you. I saw that young woman much later one day with a baby in Kroger's, a baby boy. And I have to say that boy sitting up in that shopping cart seat was something else. He was like a magic baby, the kind that stops traffic everywhere, in a store, on a sidewalk, in a parking lot, with his eye contact, his big smile, and perfect face. And you can see that somehow the baby knows his power and is playing with it. And the mother, she sees his power and she's playing off it too. And you can just imagine those two traveling through their day, creating moments of delight for everyone wherever they go. And as interesting as all that was, equally striking to me was the transformation that occurred in old Sourpuss. Like I said, she was pretty. And that day, as strangers stopped and fussed over her child, she blushed and smiled in a way that could only be described as radiant. And as I walked past her and her latest cooing Kroger milieu, well, of course she didn't say hello to her mailman, but no matter. In spite of the slight, well, I was happy for her. I thought maybe she'll lighten up and find some joy in her life. Looked like she already did. And now for the Christmas part. So I'm delivering mail, and it's mid-December. It's early evening, already dark, when I pull up to the young woman's house. As I grab the parcel off the side tray and throw open the door of my LLV, I see her front door is reflecting blue and orange and green Christmas tree bulbs on the steamy glass. The living room beyond is bright and inviting. Well, I knock, and the old Sourpuss comes to the door, but she's smiling. She opens the door, and I hand her the parcel. She says, "Oh, thanks." And then, with a pointed finger, says, "Wait." She leaves the foyer, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is not going to be good. But she comes back, opens the glass door, and with a bit of trepidation extends an envelope. She smiles a small smile and says, "This is for you." Then she gets pensive and says, "Look, I know I haven't been nice to you in the past, and I'm sorry. But when Evan, our son, came into our lives, it changed everything. It changed us. Tom and I have such joy now, and, well, I just want you to have this. It's not much, but please take it, and have a nice Christmas." Well, I took the card from the young woman and looked down at it, a little embarrassed by her sincerity and unsure of how to respond. But then, with a slight smile of my own, I managed an, it's all good, and thanks. And you have a nice Christmas, too. I looked at her looking at me, and she seemed grateful for my words. So I backed away, let the door close, and headed back down the sidewalk to my vehicle. Well, once behind the wheel, I opened the envelope the young woman had given me. Okay, a simple holiday message and a 5. Cool. I knew the next day I'd enjoy a coffee and scone with thoughts of the young woman and her magic baby, and thoughts, too, about the grace the young woman was showing me. No, not the Holy Ghost kind that flies down from heaven, but the out-of-the-commons kind, the stuff of our better selves that we share, even if briefly, person to person. With that, a passing car interrupted, and I decided I better get back to work. So I stuffed the envelope in my jacket pocket, slammed shut the door of my LLV, ignited my engine, and roared off. 3 more parcels, and my night was done. Whew, that was a lot. Okay. Still moving forward. This next piece started out in my daily routine, but in the writing of it ended up about 1,000,000 miles away. Coincidental to the last piece, it's about a mother and a holiday, but anyway, it's a lot different, and simply titled, A Mother's Day. That day, I stood in the purple field, a boy of 13 in the purple field among the fleshy intersecting ridges and streamy filigree veins on my mother's chest. "You should know what they did to me," she said, her face gray and dim in her ashen dying, and me in the terrible sight and sound of it all, and numb. Well, this day, I'm an old man, way older than she was then, wishing I could reach back and take her hand. We could go outside and sit in the garden. In time, I might reach across and tap her arm. "Look," I'd say there, "that bird with the yellow, how still it is, how it holds the light." And coming up towards the end, I'm going to leave you with a couple of shorties. This first one is, says a lot in the title, but I'm going to give you the rest of it anyway. Anyway, the title is Throwing in the Towel. Vietnam, I was there, but the writing of it, I could never do. Not like Yusuf did, not even close. His buku dien kai dao. Me? Well, I'm a common man, a mailman. So distant, so safe. And lastly, being a fan of British crime dramas, I've run across a term, and that term is the gaffer. In American slang, the equivalent would be the old man or the skipper. Anyway, it's a word that just tickles me. I like saying it. I'm going to take that and combine it with a picture that I like to think of and bring up from time to time. That pretty much defines my approach to retirement. So, with that, putting that all together, came up with this last piece, and it's titled The Gaffer. The old retired gaffer, mail delivered, sits in his red chair, reading by the window in the muted morning light. His cat sleeps in his lap. Soon, a newspaper slips through his fingers when his eyes flag time to pause. And pause I do now, with thanks to you for viewing and listening to my video chapbook, A Mailman Takes a Flyer on an Ode to My Retirement Project. Again, I'm Bill Friel. And in the likely event that we never meet again, I'm going to leave you with this final word, and that word is later.